Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to Battle of the Network Show's bonus episode. I'm Mike.
And I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And I'm going to let you explain this, since this is your idea.
Okay.
I guess it's a List-O-Rama, sort of.
Yeah, we could call that. It is a list, and hopefully it's very Rama-tastic. We'll let you be the judge.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about series that have been mostly forgotten, and I'm not talking about, like, we did an episode with sort of forgotten sitcoms. We did Best of the West and When Things Were Rotten. Those were sitcoms that didn't last very long and maybe were kind of falling out of the public consciousness. But I was looking at series that were around much longer, shows that were at one time very popular, maybe got a lot of recognition, especially rating success, had long runs, about 100 episodes or more, which was traditionally the benchmark for making syndication. There's a few exceptions to some of these, which I'll get into, but I put together a list of 10 shows, with a few honorable mentions here and there we'll get to, that I feel have just been kind of lost a little bit, that people just don't think about. They're not widely available, or they haven't been. Maybe more recently they have been. So I thought we could do it as a list, and maybe we'll do like a little count up, and you can comment along the way, and we'll talk about some of these, and you can see if you think they're forgotten, or maybe not, or maybe you might not know of them.
It could be. So count up as in starting with the...
We'll go 10 to 1.
Okay.
1 being what I think is the most forgotten, with my super secret formula combining statistics, intuition, tea leaves, and what have you. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So number 10 right away, I'm making an exception to my rule of 100 episodes. But that's because it was a mini-series.
Aha.
And that series is Rich Man, Poor Man. This was a mini-series with Nick Nolte and Peter Strauss, based on the Irwin Shaw novel, best-selling novel of 1970. And it aired March 1976. Mondays on ABC, most of it. It got like 23 Emmy nominations, winning a handful of Emmys. And it was kind of like the second big mini-series. And it paved the way for others that followed, like Roots. But Roots, you hear about all the time. Deservedly so. It was a fantastic series. But Rich Man, Poor Man, I don't think it's kind of been lost to time a little bit. It did get a DVD release about 15 years ago from A&E Home Video, but it's long out of print, and I just don't see it in the consciousness the way like maybe the original Shogun has, even like things like some of the 80s miniseries. But for a while, the miniseries was really big on television, and Rich Man, Poor Man was the one that I think kind of started that trend.
So what was the first one?
Well, the first one is my honorable mention. And and it's QB7, which was kind of it came just before this. It was with Ben Gazzara. And when I say first miniseries, I'm talking about like the first one on like a broadcast network, kind of spread out and aired like a miniseries as a big event. And QB7 did well too, but that's another one that you don't really hear too much about.
I've never heard of that.
It's based on it's like a libel case related to like a Holocaust, somebody that accused somebody of being complicit in the Holocaust and then suing for libel. And so it's kind of like a courtroom drama, I think, with elements of World War II references through it. But Rich Man, Poor Man is about two brothers, a rich one and a poor one, and I guess the kind of their life stories.
Okay. I mean, I've heard of it, but I know more about it now than I ever did. I don't think I knew Nick Nolte was in it. Peter Strauss, there's a guy you don't hear about anymore.
No.
He was kind of a big deal back then.
Yeah, 1970s.
Yeah, interesting too. I mean, Nick Nolte had started doing movies by then, right?
1976, yeah. I think he did television work, and movies like Deep would be around this time, and
the football one.
Yeah, North Dallas 40.
North Dallas 40. Yeah,
kind of right around this time, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess he was the poor man.
Yeah, it's the working class. So it was the family who I think was the Jordache family. They were not in jeans, but they were, there was like a business empire and him kind of going a different paths. And then it did have a sequel later, book 2, and then a third miniseries, I think, years later.
Rich Man, Middle Class Man?
Yeah. Well, the last one was like Beggar Man Thief, I think it was called, or something like that. Okay. But very popular at its time and had a big influence in the industry, I think. Okay, number 9. You ready for number 9? Number 9. Number 9 I have in the list is Hotel. And this one isn't exactly obscure, but when was the last time you saw Hotel on television anywhere, really? And that was on 5 seasons, 114 episodes, 1983 to 1988 on ABC. Now, a lot of its rating success might have been because it followed Dynasty, to be fair. But still, for one season it was number 9, another it was number 12, and another it was number 22. So it was a pretty solid rating success.
Yeah.
Kind of an anthology series, more dramatic than Love Boat. Had one of our favorites, Connie Selica, and just something you don't hear about. It did get a DVD release from VEI, which has released a lot of the series that we enjoy and talk about, but that's kind of the only way. I think it might have gotten like one season release, but fans of it are fortunate they have it on DVD because it doesn't get much exposure otherwise.
Right. James Brolin.
Yeah.
One of the guys from The White Shadow.
Yeah, I mean, in lots of guest stars each
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
You know, different guest stars going in and out of this hotel setting.
Right. Yeah. I remember seeing an episode or two, but probably wasn't meant for kids, right? It's a little soapy.
Yeah, I think a little bit more dramatic and less.
Plus,
less
it's, you know, it wasn't the kind of hotel I was used to.
Yeah.
Probably didn't have a pool.
No, I don't think it did. And, you know, back then they didn't really have this, but I don't think it had a free continental breakfast
No.
either.
Sure
So
it didn't.
how good can it be? You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
What kind of luxury hotel is this?
Yeah.
They don't give you a free breakfast. Okay, ready for number 8?
Yeah.
Number 8, I think, is interesting because just made its way onto streaming after, you know, really not being on streaming for years. But talking about Kate and Allie.
Oh, yeah.
Kate and Allie was one that I'm sure a lot of people remember. It was from Alan Landsberg, who did In Search of, his company.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. Very similar. 6 seasons on CBS and 140 episodes.
Wow.
For 1 year, it was, I think maybe it was number 8. And then it was a top 20 show for like the next 3 seasons. It was very popular. Fit well on CBS. Jane Curtin won 2 Emmys for it. It was nominated for Best Comedy several times. So it had some degree of like critical respect during its era. It's also gotten a DVD set from VEI, but really hasn't been on syndication that much in recent years. It was not on streaming until finally it's now on the Roku channel. But it was very quietly added to the Roku channel, I think. It was on RTN for years when they were showing a bunch of Universal shows, and it had a brief run on WeTV, I think. But other than that, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of Kate and Allie.
Yeah. I remember watching that a decent amount.
Yeah. Also Susan St. James.
Susan St. James and the redheaded girl and the brown-haired girl.
Yes, the daughters, yes.
The daughters and the dopey kid.
Chip.
Chip, that's right.
I remember Chip. I remember that name.
And the redhead, I'm forgetting her name now, but as an adult, she had a recurring role on The West Wing for a little while.
Oh. Right.
And I saw her recently in an episode of Homicide.
Oh,
First
nice.
or second season of Homicide. Sorry,
Okay.
4th season.
I was really surprised that it had that many episodes. And it sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
140 episodes.
Yeah. And my memory of it, I think because I haven't seen it since then, but it's my memory of thinking of the show and thinking of similar shows is that it was a notch above your typical family sitcom.
I think that's fair to say. I think it was.
I mean, it's mostly about the women.
Yeah, it was a little bit more aspirational.
Yeah.
And they just like little touches like it had like the beginnings, which were shot without a laugh track, like on location, like in New York.
Uh-huh.
And just had like the two of them usually like talking to each other. I mean, that was just,
Right.
It was something like a little interesting thing that made it distinctive.
And so they're two divorced moms.
Yeah.
Kind of sharing a house.
Right. All right. Moving on to number 7. Oh, actually, let me honorable mention Hogan Family.
Yeah.
Which we talked about recently, on the podcast here. But I think it's just something that's been overshadowed by like the legal mess and the cast changes and everything.
Yeah.
It just it was not hugely successful, but a show it's kind of been missing in action a lot more than you would think. Although I think it's been on Antenna TV, one of the DigiNets, but other than that, not a lot of digital presence and possibly
also,
legal issues.
there's another one that was a little more sophisticated
Mhm.
than some other ones, especially because I think it was coming from the house that Urkel built.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I remember, dealt with some weightier topics, and of course, Jason Bateman.
That's right. And speaking of the house that Urkel built, stay tuned. Something Urkel adjacent will be coming later as an honorable mention.
Okay.
Number 7, Marcus Welby, MD. This was on RTN again for a while.
Mm-hmm.
First couple of seasons were on DVD, but I mean, this show was on 1969 to 1976 for 170 episodes, 7 seasons. It was a top 10 program its first 3 seasons. In the year 1970-1971 season, it was the number 1 show on TV, and I believe it was the first show ever on ABC to be the number 1 at the end of a season, which is a pretty big distinction. And Robert Young, who'd been on Father Knows Best, was an icon. He was known for coffee commercials as well, but he was Marcus Welby, and that was like a big thing. But like doctor shows, as we talked about before, don't really hold up a lot in syndication for whatever reason. And Marcus Welby is the one that, like, man, that show was huge back in the day. Like, everybody knew Marcus Welby, and now you just don't hear talk about it. I mean, beyond the fact that it's just 50 years old. And my honorable mention in this is a show we've covered on the podcast, Medical Center, a show that was pretty big in its day. That at least did get complete DVD release, but you don't really see Medical Center on TV anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I was aware that Marcus Welby was even in our era.
Yeah, it started kind of just on the edge of it, but went in well into the mid 70s there. So let's see, number 6. Okay, number 6 is an interesting one. Jake and the Fat Man.
Yeah.
You remember Jake and the Fat Man?
Yeah, of course.
William Conrad from executive producer, Fred Silverman conceived this as sort of a semi spin-off of Matlock.
Okay, yeah.
So it was originally intended for NBC.
The Matlock verse.
Yes. Yes, it was a character they sort of reshaped into this character, and it was intended for NBC, but it became a CBS show, which it feels like a total CBS show, right? 5 seasons, 106 episodes, 1987 to 1992. It is on DVD from, say it with us, VEI, yes, and it begat Diagnosis Murder.
Yes.
Now, Jake and the Fat Man, I read this years ago and thought this was interesting, and I'm not sure, it was a source that knows what he's talking about, but it was on an internet forum, but I don't have any reason to think it's not right, but this guy said that Jake and the Fat Man is one of the only shows that did get to 100 episodes that was never offered for syndication. And he kind of said it in a snide way, like that shows you how popular it was. But I find that kind of interesting. I mean, it was on 5 seasons, and I think at the end it was running on fumes. And William Conrad and Joe Penny were in it, and both of them like had some health issues the course of the show. And I think by the end, neither one of them was on it regularly. So you didn't have Jake or the Fat Man, I think, at some time.
They should have changed the title. Jake or the Fat Man. Yeah. We don't know who's showing up this week, but one of them, maybe.
Yeah, it became like a logic problem by the end. Jake or the Fat Man, Jake and the Fat Man. So yeah, that happens my number 6. Okay, honorable mention here. This didn't get to 100 episodes, but I can't resist mentioning Matt Houston.
Yeah,
another show that's gotten a DVD release from VEI, and it was only on really like 3 seasons, I think 60-some episodes. But at the time, it was known probably for being a Magnum PI ripoff, right?
Yeah.
But now it's been largely forgotten. And even when some of the similar shows have popped up on streaming, Matt Houston remains sad.
Why?
I don't know.
Got Lee Horsley,
Yeah.
Pamela Hemsley,
Yeah.
City, Cowboys, Rich Guy.
Yeah.
It's got every helicopters.
I mean,
of course.
It's like almost 40 years later. You don't. Who cares if it was sort of loosely connected to Magnum PI, or it could be. They both exist now. You don't need to worry about that right now.
Wasn't there like a butler or something too?
I don't remember, but
Somebody was helping him out. Some third wheel.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're halfway through here.
Yeah.
And they're only going to get more shocking, some of these as they go. Okay, number 5. That's Incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Now, That's Incredible, actually, again, from Alan Landsberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yes. Yeah. I can't see that one. 106 episodes. It was on ABC, of course, 1980 to 1984, 5 seasons. For a while back in the day, it was syndicated in like cut-down versions, like 30-minute versions. And it was also on RTN for a while, back the good old days of RTN. Its first season, it finished number 3. I think it had like half a season, which probably helped, but it got off to a huge start. And then it was in the 20s, for the next 3 seasons. It was usually paired on Monday nights, I think, kind of with maybe as a lead into Monday Night Football, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, That's Incredible. Again, that's kind of an interesting show, and it had some influence on what followed in reality television, that kind of thing. But yeah, don't really hear much about that anymore.
Brian Tarkenton,
mm-hmm.
John Davidson,
mm-hmm.
Kathy Lee Crosby.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 people
Snakes, tarantulas.
Yeah, that had accomplishments outside the show.
Yeah.
Famous host, but yeah, just for whatever reason, you don't hear too much about it now.
Yeah, Mark Evanier wrote.
There you go, Mark Evanier connection.
Yeah.
Honorable mention is a show that we did talk about before. It's very easy to find on streaming, but Real People, which we sort of associate with That's Incredible. But again, Real People was one of NBC's like lone bright spots for like a 5 or 6 year stretch. So I thought I'd mention here something that doesn't get talked about as much, but at least it's out there. Number 4 was a big hit back in the day. And speaking of Magnum PI, it was kind of paired with it for a while. Simon and Simon.
Yeah.
You remember this? I mean,
oh yeah.
This was on 1981 to 1989. It had 156 episodes. It was another show from Universal. Shout did release some DVDs for it, but it was eventually when it went up against Cosby Show, it got hurt a little bit during its run. But this was a top 10 show for 3 seasons.
Gerald McCraney.
Yeah.
Jamison Parker. Tim Reed.
Yeah.
The lady who played their mom.
I mean, this was a big hit, a long hit. It spanned almost the whole decade of the 1980s.
Yeah.
But where is it now?
I don't know.
And certainly not on streaming officially.
Is any Gerald McCraney stuff out there? Or is Major Dad?
Major Dad was on one of the streamers for a while, I believe. I can't remember which one, but I think it faded. I think it was on Roku Channel for a while. Bending my rule for an honorable mention again, Riptide. Riptide, not quite as long, not as big a hit, but a known show in the 80s that has gotten some DVD attention. I think was on Antenna TV for a while, and I think was on Crackle for a while before it started going down.
Stephen J. Cannell.
Yeah. That's. Thank you for mentioning that. A lot of his shows are on streaming now, but that Riptide is missing in action for whatever reason.
Huh. Perry King, one of the kings of TV movies and series that didn't last, and miniseries and things. And Joe Penny again, and the guy that played the nerd.
Thom Bray. Tom Bray, yes. Yeah.
And the robot and the helicopter.
Yeah. Some classic 80s elements.
Yep.
Just named a bunch of them. Number 3. Okay, number 3 is on streaming now. It just made its way on Plex and for digital purchase. But I'm talking about Knott's Landing. Honorable mention, Falcon Crest.
Yeah.
But Knott's Landing in particular. And it sort of has stayed in the public consciousness only because of like a lot of the primetime soaps. I think it's had a devoted legion of fans who have clamored for it to be on DVD or just available. But Knott's Landing was on 14 years on CBS. 344 episodes.
Yeah.
It was top 30 show most years, but it was a top 10 show for a few years. And, for a while, it was actually more popular than Dallas, which is the show that spawned it. I think it might even be higher on my list if I, hadn't just been added to Plex. And right now you can see it like all episodes streaming for free, which is pretty cool. It had some syndication. It was on TNT for a while years ago. It was on SoapNet, which is no longer around.
I remember it also being on way back when, being on in afternoon syndication.
Like probably when the show was still on.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, on prime time, yeah. I think the first season was on DVD, but that's it. Again, devoted following, but Not Slaying was huge.
Yeah.
And you don't hear too much about it anymore.
No.
All right, number 2. We're getting close here. Empty Nest. Empty Nest went into the 90s, but did start in 1988, and because it was spun off from the Golden Girls, I think it counts as a show from our era. 7 seasons, 170 episodes. 170 episodes of that. Wow. 7 seasons. Can you believe that?
I honestly can't.
Well, it was a top 10 show for its first 3 seasons. Now, part of it may be drafting off Golden Girls.
Sure.
It was in local syndication, in the 1990s for local stations. It was on TBS briefly, and it was on WGN for a couple of years, I think, in the 90s in syndication. And Hallmark had it very briefly in the early 2010s, I believe. I can only assume that it bombs in syndication because it looks like it has a lot of short runs. It doesn't do very well in syndication for whatever reason.
Huh.
The DigiNet Laugh, LAFF, had it for like 3 or 4 years in the mid-2010s. But other than that, man, this show, and it's never gotten any sniff of a home video release.
Richard Mulligan is due for a renaissance.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This soap?
Yeah.
That scavenger hunt movie?
Yeah. SOB.
SOB?
Yeah.
Is he in Caddyshack? He's not in Caddyshack.
Should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, Empty Nest and Park Overall. Remember,
right,
Park Overall was a big thing
was
for a while.
Like a breakout. She was the Jack A of that show.
Yeah. And actually had 2
Joe Isuzu.
Leisure,
yeah.
Yes. They had 2 breakout stars. I mean, come on.
Plus the return of Christy McNichol.
Yes. Now, Empty Nest was never what you call a critical darling, no. But, I mean, you can't argue with 7 seasons, and it was very popular for a while there.
Yeah.
Again, nowadays, not much, and it's I guess it's in the Disney family. Disney's hasn't been big on, like, touchstone television, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't been real big on physical media, but, I mean, I'm surprised it's not shown up on Hulu or, just something. Honorable mention here. I alluded to this earlier. A Friday night show, well known in the culture, but not very visible. Mr. Belvedere.
Yeah.
I mean,
where is it?
I don't understand why Mr. Belvedere is not seen more.
Yeah.
It was on antenna television for a couple of years. And it had 6 seasons. Only the first 4 of them came out on DVD for some reason. 117 episodes. 6 years. It's got Bob Uecker.
Right.
That alone makes it worth being somewhere, I would think.
Got Wesley.
It's got Wesley. Yes.
Maybe it's too topical.
Maybe it had some very special episodes.
Yeah.
It seems like it didn't seem that out of place with those other TGIF shows, though.
Do you remember? Because I don't. I just thought of this. Why they have a butler? Like, did they win him in a prize contest or something?
He lost a bet.
Yeah.
And to Bob. No, I think the idea was that the conceit was that the mom was going back to work.
Uh-huh.
So they needed somebody. And I think maybe like they agreed that they could manage if they hired somebody to help out with the household, because it was like a big deal that she was. I don't think it was like that Bob Uecker's George character was like totally chauvinistic about it.
Right.
But it was like they didn't think that they could have the household run with both of them working.
Yeah.
Which the more I say it doesn't make sense. But
well,
that's my memory of it.
When Wesley is part of your household.
Yeah.
Because the other 2 kids were teenagers. They were.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There were 2 kids, right? There was
the 3
a girl.
Yeah, 3 kids. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 kids total. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the older boy was a dummy, but
yeah.
Still.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But all you needed was to get him in the door, and then you weren't getting rid of him. Once they had it, I was like, okay,
yeah,
maybe they gave him a trial basis and were skeptical,
but it wasn't like Mary Poppins where he just showed up.
No,
because they needed him.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
I don't think they needed him at all.
Yeah.
Until they found it. And then they couldn't do without him.
I would don't tell George that.
No, I would watch some Mr. Belvedere just for Bob Uecker.
Yeah,
they should do like 10-minute versions of the episodes that just have Bob Uecker scenes. And Bob Uecker scenes and Belvedere arguing with Wesley, insulting Wesley scenes. That would be the show right there. That would be all you need, I think.
Come on, do it before Bob Uecker passes away.
Yes, please. Yeah. So Mr. Belvedere, again, was I think owned by Fox, which is owned by Disney now. So chances are good. But again, put that on Hulu or something. All right, you ready for the number 1 show?
I am ready.
All right. This program here was on 7 seasons. Maybe you can guess it if I give you the clues. 7 seasons, 131 episodes.
Was Mr. Belvedere
Actually, 151 episodes.
Urkel adjacent one?
Yes.
Okay.
It was. This is not Urkel adjacent. This is on 1979 to 1986. I believe was it aired on CBS? Would be, I think, part of the Fox family of shows. And here's what I remember. I believe it was on FX when it first started. And American Life TV in 2007 had it. And I do remember them adding this, and it was kind of a big deal because it hadn't been on very much in years, but they also added like Mary Tyler Moore Show, Bob Newhart Show, I think, and Hill Street Blues, maybe some others. And now it's got no home video release, very little attention to it. It's in a similar genre of show that already has appeared on this list. And the only real mention I know of it recently is there's a podcaster and author, Amanda Reyes, who actually had a podcast devoted to this show, it cracked me up that she did this. I don't think she's had a new episode in a while, but I actually enjoyed listening to the episode she put out where she was doing an episode by episode look from the beginning at this series, because she said like it was underappreciated. And she's right. Whatever you think about the show, it was on 7 seasons. It wasn't a huge ratings hit, but as soon as I tell you what it is, you're gonna think, oh yeah, that was on part of CBS for this era.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Trapper John MD.
Yeah.
Pernell Whitaker. It had people that
Pernell Roberts.
Or Pernell Whitaker, the boxer. That would be a heck of a show, wouldn't it?
I didn't know there was another Pernell in the world.
Yeah. Oh, the episode where he was forced to treat his rival Julio Cesar Chavez when he came into the hospital. That was a corker, I tell you.
So it's Pernell Whitaker, Gonzo from the Muppet Show.
Yes.
And a talking trapper keeper.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Why wasn't that more of a? Yeah, everybody should want to see that.
But yeah, hey, if you've seen any trace of Trapper John MD, you're one up on me, because I don't even see this talked about anywhere. And
weird spinoff, not spinoff from MASH.
And now there were some legal issues. Maybe there's something there, but it has been on. Like I said, it was on at least 2 different places that I know of. So it's not like it's forbidden to be aired. Maybe a home video release would be unlikely, but I'm surprised it hasn't shown up on one of these diginets. Or it'd be nice to see it on streaming. I wouldn't sit down and watch the whole thing, but it's like I'm kind of curious now. Like, what was the show like? Because I didn't really watch it as a kid.
No,
it was on too late.
It was a grown-up show.
It was on after Alice and after MASH. This kind of shows.
Right, and Gonzo was getting up to who knows what in his hot tub or whatever.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I think it was probably considered a relatively routine medical drama, but I think it deserves a little bit more attention. Had a great run. Again, like medical shows, we mentioned 3 of them: Trapper John, Marcus Welby Medical Center, all shows with long runs that don't seem to have much presence, and that's not even counting St. Elsewhere, which we talked about, but has not been a consistent presence on streaming or home video or syndication.
Now, I'm surprised Quincy didn't make your list.
Quincy did not make my list because I believe it was on Netflix in the early days? It was on RTN. Yeah. It's been on Cozy TV. I think since Cozy TV launched, it's been on Cozy. I think it's been on Get TV. So it's been on the DigiNets, and all of it did make it to home video.
Yeah.
So
it didn't meet your criteria.
It didn't quite meet my criteria, but it's close. I mean, I think it could. One thing it hasn't been is on. Yeah, it might have been on Netflix years ago, but it hasn't been on streaming in years and years for sure. And I don't know. I have no idea why. It's NBC owns it, Universal. I don't think there's anything blocking it, unless maybe Shout owns the rights and won't release it and won't put it in its own streaming service. I don't know.
Maybe the Clugger estate.
Oh, boy, I hope not. Maybe they're selling it as a package deal with You Again. If you want Quincy, you got to take You Again and put them both on.
And some surplus Eagle snacks.
Yeah. Could be. But yes, that's my list. 10 shows that I think have been relatively forgotten. And, you may not be a big fan of all of them, but I think they just deserve to have more of a presence, or at least give people the opportunity to see them more easily, because they were very big back in their day.
There's an interesting list, and I was a little worried that I wouldn't recognize some of them. But I guess since part of your criteria was that they were shows that were successful in their time, that made it more likely. So really, Rich Man, Poor Man was the only one I wasn't. And Marcus Welby surprised me, but the others are many of them things that I watch. So.
It kind of makes sense. Because some of them are hard to find, it might be tough for us to do them on the podcast. But if anybody is curious, or if enough people are interested, maybe we could do one of these on a future regular episode of the podcast. But
yeah, I would. I mean, I think Mr. Belvedere has been on the list. right?
Yeah. Now, there may be episodes of that on YouTube. But
Yeah.
when I talk about streaming, I'm talking about officially available licensed streaming app.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in a rush to do Knots Landing, but some of the other ones for sure.
Yeah, especially like some of the ones I haven't seen as much. I'd be curious to check a few of them out and see, okay, why were these so popular back then? And what was that all about?
Yeah.
I get kind of surprised by Simon and Simon. That's when I don't understand why that's not.
I don't get that either.
It seems like it would be easy comfort viewing.
Right.
You know.
Surprised that hasn't been like. There've probably been attempts to remake that.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Like they're sisters now or something.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Right.
There's something you could do with it.
It's a pretty basic formula.
Yeah.
It seemed like you could, or I could see like NBC turning it into Universal, doing something with Kevin Hart and somebody,
Right. Yeah.
making a new version.
And The Rock.
Yeah, Kevin Hart and The Rock and Simon reboot.
Yeah. Well, now that they've done the Fall Guy, maybe they could move on to.
Yeah.
9 minutes.
And I might have put the Fall Guy on my list too, if not for the fact that they did have that movie. But the movie didn't do much for the TV show because the TV show still is kind of semi in limbo.
Like parts of it. Sometimes it's around, right?
I think Heroes and Icons channel is actually running all the episodes now, but only like a little bit of it is available on streaming, and it seems to come and go.
Yeah, I think Doug Barr is due for a renaissance. Too.
Yeah, another renaissance. Richard Mulligan and Doug Barr.
Yeah.
Did they ever do a project together?
Well, that might be another bonus episode. Was Richard Mulligan ever on Mulligan Stew?
I don't know.
Think so. No.
Probably not.
Well, thanks for coming up with this idea.
Yes, thank you for indulging me. I hope all of you out there enjoyed it. If there's any more nominations you have for similar lists that we didn't, let us know.
Yeah, okay. We'll see you again soon.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.